Buddy.
There we
go.
There it is.
Now we're kicking. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to PAX East 2019. We are here for a game called Layers of Fear 2, which you guys can tell is a new masterpiece in horror. I'm joined by my buds from Fear the Gun and Bloober team, all the way from Poland, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with my man, Ronnie.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Hobbs. I'm the creative director at Gun Media.
I'm Wes Keltner. I'm the president of Gun Media, and I have a mustache.
That's right.
I'm Rafał Basai. I come from Bloober team from Poland, as mentioned, and I'm the brand manager for Layers of Fear 2.
Hi, I'm Ismail Vicens. I'm a senior producer at Gun Media.
So, I'm sure you guys all know why we've gathered you here today. I promise this is.
It's to kill you all.
Yeah,
Good
right.
luck.
Lock the door. We're all here for Layers of Fear. How many of you guys, show of hands real quick, how many of you have played Layers of Fear 1?
I can't
Whoa.
I can't see them.
You can't see anyone, yeah. Wes is like, no one, really? No, that's a lot of hands. Awesome, guys. That's great. So then you kind of know what to expect from the brand Layers of Fear. We're going to jump into a little bit about who we are and what we do behind the scenes. So who is Bloober team?
I think that's for me.
That's a great question for our Bloober team guy.
Okay, so Bloober team is a small indie company. Well, not so small anymore, I guess, but indie company nevertheless. HQ'd in Krakow, Poland. We do psychological horror games. You may know us from Layers of Fear, like obviously, but also from Observer that we've released 2017. Really cool game. You need to play it. So yeah, what we do with our games, we actually try to maybe introduce a little more something new to what we have on the market right now. Like, if you think about horror games, like most of you probably think survival horror games. So a lot of action, a lot of, monsters that you either kill in thousands or you need to just run away from them to survive. So when we kind of started working on Layers of Fear, we wanted to introduce kind of an idea that we can do a different type of horror, like psychological horror, that will be focused more on kind of the atmosphere and storytelling, less on dexterity and action. And yeah, Layers of Fear was made out of that principle. And from that, we just moved on with what we call hidden horror, which in very quick terms means that all of our games need to have a subject. And that subject is kind of the bottom layer of each production. And apart from that, it's something that we call Catharsis 2.0. So basically, what we want to do with that is that we want you guys to stop for a second when playing our games and think about what you're doing, like what kind of decisions you make, how the game actually influences you guys, and how do you react to what's happening in the game. After talking to you guys for a few years right now, we know it works, at least for some of you, which is extremely good news for us, and we're very happy for that. So yeah, I think that's a brief on Bloober team.
One of the wonderful things about Bloober team is the environments that they build. I know a lot of you guys who are fans. I see some of our fans talking about getting Bluebird, which is when they turn the rooms on you and stuff.
Yeah, I learned that yesterday.
Right. There's a lot of really great tricks that they pull, and there's a lot of really great things that they bring to it, as well as a wealth of knowledge and expertise, which is a perfect segue into who is Gun Media. Boom. And we're gonna talk to our president over here about that one.
Well,
you see.
let's see. Gun is kind of a hybrid publisher, I guess would be the best way to describe us. We're a design concept team, first and foremost. So we write game design concepts, and then we find talented developers around the world to help us bring that vision to life. But sometimes we find cool games that someone else is making, and we're like, man, that's freaking rad. Right. And they're like, well, they need a little help, and we were like, well, let's collab on this and see what we can do. And we both have mutual respect for both teams, and we both love horror, so it kind of made sense for us to team up. And in that role, we jump in and help with more, I guess you would see, more of a traditional publisher role, where we're helping them bring the game to market, come to shows like this with them, help set up the booth, get the game on out in the marketplace, and just help where they need us to help. Because when you're making games, it's really freaking hard. So the more people you have that's got your back, the somewhat easier it is when you're pulling those late nights, which is why we really wanted to have a much larger amount of the Bloober team here, but they're really close.
Yeah.
So we need the whole team there, like hands on deck, getting the finishing touches on the game. So yeah, that's the quick and dirty on whose gun is and what we do.
Again, one of my favorite Wes Keltner quotes, which I hope you don't mind me sharing here, is, "I just want to make cool shit." That's right. There you go. The president
Exactly
did that.
right.
I wasn't so comfortable. I was like, I'm a little more in limbo. He's not going anywhere. So,
I thought you were going to say, like, no, the butts need to be better. That's like the other.
Right. Could have gone either way there, right?
Yeah.
Making cool shit or butts. But, one of the great things about Gun Media is the attention to detail that a lot of people know us for. Ronnie here is the creative director from Friday the 13th. The attention to detail that was put into that game, I think we can all appreciate Bloober's attention to detail and a psychological horror game experience with a focus on story-driven exploration. But there's a lot of inspiration in there from films and things like that we've really, every playtest at the studio, we get to see what Bloober's working on and see these little behind-the-scenes things and share them with you guys. And the fandom is so deep and rich there. But for Layers of Fear 2, Layers of Fear 1, as you guys know, was a game about an artist and working on his great masterpiece. Well, the tagline of a new masterpiece is not happenstance. This time we're dealing with filmmakers. And maybe, Ronnie, maybe you can talk a little bit about that one.
Obviously, Layers of Fear 1 was influenced heavily by art, for all of you that played it. Whereas Layers of Fear 2 is heavily influenced by film and a lot of classical films that you may have seen. So if you've played the demo here at PAX already, we're actually going to play it again in a few minutes. Suspiria, Nosferatu, Repulsion, Dogville. There's a lot of classic films that they are just experts at not recreating, but using as a homage and somehow fitting it into this awesome storyline. And that's Rafa's team and how great they are at just melding those things together. So really, you play as Jimmy, an actor. And this time around, you are preparing for the role of a lifetime. You've been offered a movie role by a very eccentric director played by Tony Todd, who's Candyman, if you didn't know. So you'll hear his voice in the demo. And unfortunately, Jimmy has a sense of loss and some past trauma that he's trying to overcome while preparing for this role. So it's up to you, the player, just like in Layers of Fear 1, to play the game, figure out what's going on. So that's kind of the setup for the demo if you haven't played it on the show floor here today. So.
And that's a great time for us to say on the show floor at booth 16121.
That's right.
But yes, so as Layers of Fear 1 dealt with the masterpiece being art, this masterpiece is more cinematic. And we have from PAX South our gameplay trailer that we want to run for you guys real quick before we jump into the demo.
Yeah, just in case you guys haven't seen it or you don't even know what Layers of Fear 2 is, we're going to show you just a couple of videos real quick just to set the tone.
So, I skipped a slide.
It's okay.
I'm fired. That's a great slide. But now we're going to go into our gameplay.
There's our film influences.
Yeah. And
Technical difficulties.
There we go.
there we go.
You play a part. This place, the life it was to be, you cannot have it. You can never have it. It will never be yours. Time marches on. Time waits for no one. Victor, do not waste hours.
There you go. I had to make sure I let that trailer play because that slate clap is
gotta
the
have
part
the
that
slate
gets me
clap.
every time. I love it.
I've seen that trailer like 100 times at least.
Right.
It's still good.
Yep.
I still love it. So.
So as we talked about, that was our trailer from PAX South. Now, during our PAX South panel, we wanted to cover, I just walked away from the mic, we wanted to cover a lot of the film influences and horror noir influences in,
Who is it?
yeah, You want to invite him down here? So our film influences, there's a heavy influence with the horror genre as well as noir, kind of as a painting over top of everything that is Layers of Fear. And I would love to hear a little more from Mr. Rafal on that topic.
Sure, like obviously one of the focus for the game were horror films, right? You are buffs of horror, probably, you know them. Obviously it was our first intention to put them in the game. However, to kind of preserve a cool aesthetic and look that would not get bored very quickly, we've introduced some other genres there as well. I don't want to spoil too much, but we definitely can talk a little bit about noir. So, you know, black and white, very kind of atmospheric heavy rooms, light that will be very scarce. So that all builds up to that tension. So I won't say like very concrete references to noir. Sometimes it's just like the overall theme of the genre within the game. So that's one. We have more. I don't think we want to say more right now. You guys definitely want to find that out for themselves. But if you think about horror and noir, they are quite close to each other in terms that they need to build up tension in a way. They need to be, there needs to be a mystery that needs to be solved, and often there is a murder or a death, you know? You know, okay. So that's what we want to have in the game. So we are kind of mixing genres. We are doing a lot of cool stuff in the game. And yeah, hope you guys will like it when you finally see the whole picture.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel. Like Ish is heavily involved on the game as well as, and we're playing the demo a lot, weekly, several times weekly. And continually throughout the development process, we've been surprised over and over by new references that you might miss the first time, but the 15th time you play it, you're like, oh, I know what that's from, and it's one of your favorite films. You just didn't make the connection. So they really, really are great at just like putting some stuff that's in your face, but also hidden away, kind of like Layers of Fear 1. So yeah, it's been good.
And on the topic of the influences, we also, you know, the arm hallway is...
Yeah, Repulsion.
That's Repulsion, and that's something that has now become a very common piece of artwork for the game. It's very indicative of, you know, the idea of... Well, you know what? I'm not going to go any further on that. We're going to hear from Ronnie on that one because I'm not the creative there.
No,
so.
it's one that's it's another scene that is well known in film if you've seen the film. If not, you probably don't. But that's the beauty of it. Like you don't have to have seen these films to enjoy the game, and you won't even know that it's a reference. So,
however, they might kind of give a little boost to the experience if you know the films. They sometimes give you small hints or intertextual kind of hints to what will happen next or what's the kind of bottom layer to experiencing the game, but they are definitely not needed to understand the game.
Yeah.
It definitely like boosts replayability though, where you after you finished, you get to go back through again and maybe go a little slower that time and really take in and notice the little scenes and the little. Sometimes it's an entire scene, sometimes it's just like one prop that you might recognize from a film. And if you're, and I've said this at the booth to a few folks that have come by that were content creators, casters, streamers, that it actually can make for a really fun thing to do with your community, where you may play through it with the community, but then the next time you go back through, you're maybe like quizzing your community, say, you guys know where this is from, and and put something like that together too. That I think could be a lot of fun to get an entire group of people to sit around and enjoy and try to call out some of the scenes and things that are from famous horror films. Absolutely.
And even from our aspect, when we would get a build to test and play, you're sitting and you're seeing these areas and you're like, that's familiar, I can't put my finger on it, and it becomes this great game. Who's got it? And there's always one person with that smirk who knows exactly.
It's always Ronnie. He always knows exactly.
That one person.
Yeah.
So now we're all caught up to speed from our PAX South presentation. We in the interim in between South and here, we also have released some developer diaries. We did one recently on audio, which we think has been a pretty interesting look behind the scenes over at Bloober. It's at the location itself in Krakow, Poland. And so we have that video now that we would like to show you guys about how some of the audio design and sound tracking has been done in Layers of Fear 2.
Welcome to the second episode of the development diaries for Layers of Fear 2. Let us talk today about audio design. Sound design in horror plays one of the most crucial roles in building the proper atmosphere. It sets the mood and builds up the tension even before any visual cues come into the picture.
The most unique aspect of sound design in Layers of Fear 2 is the lo-fi aspect. We used a variety of software, but analog old gear as well, like the cassette recorder that I have here on my desk. So this is one of the ways that we recorded metal stingers in the game. Here's how it sounds like.
That's Kali.
An important part of every game is its musical score. We were looking for an effect that would highlight the classic horror vibe.
The music for Layers of Fear 2 is very emotional, just like in the first part. Main inspirations for the soundtrack come from old horror soundtracks. We use a lot of strings, that's why we really wanted to have the sound as real as possible. Working with George Strezov and Sofia Session Orchestra was a real highlight because having live performances brought another level of depth to the score.
Layers of Fear 2 hosts a variety of characters. Each of them needs to be charismatic and unique. One of the most important roles is played by Tony Todd, Candyman himself.
To be honest, working with Tony Todd's voice was quite easy because he's just a tremendous voice actor. But what I wanted to do is to make his voice huge, somewhat supernatural, while still pertaining his own characteristic of voice.
Time marches on.
His natural, dry voice sounds like this.
An empty shell cannot live forever.
And after adding all the effects that I use,
An empty shell cannot live forever.
Thank you for watching Layers of Fear 2 Dev Diaries. See you soon in the next episode in which we'll talk about design in our game.
What's awesome about that video is it has a lot of footage that we haven't released anywhere else.
Yeah.
And
It's just there.
there's a lot of
If you're
hidden
paying
scenes.
attention, yeah.
Yeah, if you pay attention, there's a lot of cool stuff in there that's not even at this demo.
And,
Yeah,
and
so
plus, I want to point out that even the dog was like, nope. Like,
we knew the dog would win everyone over.
I was so happy though that we were able to get the orchestra to play that because, I mean, I don't have to. I'm not reinventing the wheel by saying that music is so incredibly important in a horror game so I was really excited whenever they were available because there's so much that you can do digitally that it may sound okay, but it lacks. It's not as imperfect as what a human does whenever they're, especially with strings. Because if you're playing strings like with a keyboard setup synthesizer and you're running that through Pro Tools or whatever, you can get it nearly perfect. But that doesn't sound right to the ear, especially for horror. So whenever you actually have real humans that are playing it, they're off just a little, like comparatively. And those little tiny imperfections that happen in it actually brings so much more richness to it and a feeling of uneasiness, especially when a lot of the chords that were being played there are in minor. So when you do minor and have that kind of human touches to it, hairs start to kind of stand up on the neck. And obviously dogs run away from it. So
dogs hate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you take a bow to a guitar,
Right.
like these two things don't go together. And the dog was like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" Oh no. So now, as Bart, our lead designer from Bloober Team, said in the end of that video, we have a whole bunch more. We have one dev diary coming up, but we have a whole bunch more content to share. I'm gonna catch myself there. That next dev diary, you can keep an eye out. We will be sharing it on all of our socials, obviously. But right now, we're all up to speed. Everybody in this room is prepped and ready for the biggin, the gameplay. My buddy Ronnie here is going to actually.
How many of you have played the demo here today?
Oh, then
Okay.
you're going to recognize
All right.
some.
So we're also playing it not just for you, but for the people who are watching at home on the live stream, so who didn't get to come to PAX.
Absolutely.
So if you've already played it, apologies. You have to play it again. Or watch it. I'll go slow and point out some cool stuff along the way. So. Make sure my controls are inverted.
Oh, here we go.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Some parts are not to be played. Some parts.
Not today.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
That's a whole hallway of Bluebird.
Don't go. Just stop here for a second. I want to say something that I think one of the things that's most brilliant about working with Bluebird team, and there you got Bluebird as folks have seemed to dub it, is that when you're playing a game that has horror elements like this in it, that when you start to get to an area that you feel uneasy, the psychological part of you says, "Oh, go back to what you know, right? Go backwards where it's safe, and kind of collect yourself." And then maybe inch forward. They take that away from you, right?
Sorry.
Like, that's that safety.
Okay, I'm not sorry.
That safety
You
net.
deserve it.
That safety net that feels so good. That warm blanket of familiarity is gone, and I think it's a brilliant mechanic and it's a tool that they wield with absolute brilliance. So good job.
Thank you. That was really nice. Thank you.
Nope.
There are things that should not be. Should not be broken.
Tony is so good. When you get VO actors in, some maybe have experience with video games, maybe some don't, and you have to sometimes use a heavy hand to get them to bring a character to life. You're gonna have to push them a little more to get the voice that you're really looking for. And so when we had Tony in the VO studio, just in him like kind of warming up, I was like, yeah, you're good. Like we don't.
We're done.
Yeah, he's just like, just getting started. He's like, is microphone check good or whatever. I can't do a Tony voice, obviously. And everyone in the room is like terrified already, and they're like, yeah, you're good.
And I have to say, one of the things that I really enjoy about this, we requested that they turn the lights down a little bit because between not only the visual, but that sound, when he starts talking as the director, you feel it in your chest. And it's amazing. So.
Cheer up. You're all right. You're not hurt. set. Nothing really happened. You just need to be more careful.
Raffle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Layers of Fear 1 was made in Unity.
It was.
And then when you went to Observer, I think...
We switched to Unreal.
Switched to Unreal.
Yes.
So that, it's not as if one is like better than the other, it's just a different palette, right?
Yeah, definitely. Being able to kind of work in Unreal and basically do all of those visual tricks the engine allows to. Okay. It really helped us a lot. Like the visual overall quality in the game is one of something of most importance to us. Like, we want you to feel the atmosphere of the game, and we cannot do it without detail. And that includes lighting, that includes...
Definitely lighting. I mean, you can tell a major difference.
Particle effects, like, yeah. There's a lot of that in the game.
It's very lush. And
shout outs to artists.
Have a lot of kind of visual noise that I think you did a really great job with.
I don't know if anybody can tell, but those are toes.
These are odd curtains hanging there.
You picked the curtains out of the scene?
Yeah, was that you?
Okay.
Nope. Sorry, guys.
That's really far beyond in the Bed Bath Beyond, like way back.
Why am I always the one? Why weren't you there? Why didn't you protect me? Why did you let this monster? Useless! Worthless! I hate you!
Yeah, I'll totally go in there. It's fine.
I am still here. This is not the end. This pain will pass. The scars will fade.
Such a great scene.
So now you guys know why we carry mannequins around everywhere we go.
And we have those in our office too, if you haven't seen our social feeds.
We do.
There's one right outside my door, and like another one outside his, and random creepy mannequins in our office.
We're living in the mannequin thing.
So like 8 o'clock when the sun goes down.
Oh yeah. I had to go back up there. I left a jump drive or something one night. I went back up there at night. And I didn't turn on all the lights.
Yeah. And then there's the Jasons too that are there.
Well, there's
like,
that.
It's not good.
No. But I love that ending where I don't know if you noticed or not, but it won't let you look behind you.
Yeah.
It's forcing you to walk backwards through. So you see where you've been and you see what you don't obviously want to go forward into, but you have no idea what you're backing into as well. And that kind of uncomfortableness, that type of tension, you guys do that really well.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's more tricks that you could see, like the low frame mannequins, kind of feeling something wrong with them, like they're moving basically in a different timeline in a sense. So all those small things that we try to make that are not necessarily right in your face, but keep you uncomfortable for like the remainder of the whole game. You can thank our artists later.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for those moments that a lot of folks at the booth playing the game, they've gotten to that part, and that the want is to turn, just as Ronnie showed in the demo, the want is to turn. But the fact that the game is pulling you in and forcing you to experience that, and I think there's something really interesting there, and it's a really cool statement. That's our gameplay demo. We're a little bit further ahead in our presentation here, and we want to make sure we get a chance to get through some Q&A. So we have some big news that we want to be able to share. Once we share this news, then we're going to roll into some Q&A, so get the wheels turning. But we have some release information. I'm sure there's a few people in this crowd that are going to be looking for one more key thing. But we do have plenty of great details for you guys. PlayStation, Xbox, PC, all platforms. Price is going to be $29.99 at launch, and we're still working with that 2019 release window. Rafal, maybe you can help them understand where we're at with the game right now and what we're looking at.
We're looking at a really cool upcoming game that will be in 2019.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, as Wes had mentioned earlier, we have
breaking news.
Yeah, we have a lot of people at Bloober Team that are still they're in a crunch to.
We're working hard right now to bring you the best possible experience. Like the shout outs to the whole team, which is doing a tremendous job, and I constantly in awe of how much work they put into this, and like how much love and basically knowledge of horror and how to scare you guys is like it keeps me at night, But yeah, real huge shout outs to the team who are doing a tremendous job, but couldn't be here unfortunately to talk to you directly. So yeah, we're doing this, and it will be the best horror game this year out.
There you go.
I'm a fan of bold. I think we're going to launch right into Q&A now that we got the big things out of the way. If you guys, we have...
perhaps?
What's that?
You want to line up behind the mics?
Absolutely. We've got two microphones in the aisles. You guys can come on down with your questions if you like, or jump in first. It's a good time to have a question. Oh, there you go. Now, it's over.
Can you see a mic over there?
Yeah. There is a mic on that side, yeah.
Okay, so we'll rotate sides, if you will.
You guys didn't have the second mic set up?
Okay, just this one over here?
Okay, got it.
Okay.
The one microphone.
Sound good?
Please, go ahead.
All right, so Ronnie, you're a very skilled player. When I played this demo, I died like 5 times until I discovered the run button.
I mean, trapping him in the coffin is not easy.
No, it's
we
not.
practiced that like 35 times back in the
So I wanted to ask because I've never played the original Layers of Fear, and some friends of mine said, you can die in the game? Like, really? So is death actually going to be a thing in Layers of Fear 2, or is this just for the demo?
No, you can die in Layers of Fear. So the Formless Man, that thing that was chasing you, his name's the Formless Man, and he's the main threat. So
he's the primary antagonist, not the narrator?
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, big fan. I just had a question about the soundtrack. I was curious if we could maybe get some information about the original Layers of Fear soundtrack and maybe the Observer soundtrack on a physical release.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Observer probably. So we are looking into how we can use music. Right now, Observer's OST is available on YouTube. It's also available on Steam that you can buy and help support us. We are not doing too much merch ourselves, but we would definitely like to push a little bit more with kind of the music scores, which we know you guys want and crave in all kinds of different forms. So we do hear you. We will be looking into that shortly, hopefully, to get you the music you deserve.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And I think that answers the Layers of Fear 2 as well.
Same.
Hi, guys. The question that I have for you is, seeing other games made and making other games during the animation process, there's all these fluid animations, usually using motion capture to get that lifelike animation, and sometimes hand animating that. What is the animation process like for trying to get that horrific stutter, low frames animation? Is it more of a struggle to get that perfect animation that you desire?
Yeah, definitely. It's a hard and tough job to make animations. However, we kind of invested and have our own mocap kind of room in the company. So it helps us a lot to kind of record people, most often our QA teams. Shout outs to you guys. But yeah, it's a tough job, you know? Like, you can get just enough quality out of pure kind of raw footage from a motion capture, and after that, you know, the animators come into all of that. And it's a really tough job, but it takes a lot of time, but you know, there's nothing like impossible to do. So skipping frames, like, I'm not an animator, I'm not technical, so I cannot go into detail on that. However, I can assure you that having this kind of motion capture basis helps a lot. And after that, we just put in, well, countless hours into animating all of the stuff in the game. So, yeah, sorry I cannot answer more technically, but I'm just not an animator.
The mannequins have the perfect amount of glitchiness, so
They
there's
really
a lot
do.
of going back and forth on that one, so for sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to playing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay. So you guys were talking about how the game forces you to continue to go forward and you can't go back, and how that's one of the major scary components of the game. But the part of your games that are the most distressing to me are the human components. The story, the characters have been through hell. It's hard to say that one character is bad and one character isn't, you know, and you speculate on what mental illness they might be experiencing. So I was wondering if you could say more about what inspires the team to write these characters and these stories. You know, you can only imagine what this woman who's screaming in anguish has gone through. We've only heard some of it, but I just wonder what that's like for you guys.
Yeah, like, we want our stories to be very personal, on a very deep personal level, that people can kind of feel themselves. Some of you probably experience some of the feelings, both in Layers of Fear that we've showed, maybe in Observer, maybe even here on the show floor on while playing Layers of Fear 2 demo. We don't want to make characters that are flashy or over the top. We want them kind of flesh and blood like any of us. We have different problems. Obviously, to tell a good story, we need to dramatize a little bit. So most often the problems just get over the top at some point, and there's a breakdown of the character that's well necessary to tell a good story. But again, like our focus is to tell very deep and personal stories, and not very often, but we get emails and notes that are very personal. I won't be going into details of them because, well, they are personal. However, some of you do write to us and telling us that the game, in a way, changed your life or even changed it drastically, even to an extent that some people start to understand that what happened to them in the past was actually, like, they understand why it happened. And they can finally move forward. So we get those kind of letters from time to time, and they are very personal. We appreciate them immensely because we feel that our approach towards making games to not only be pure fun, but also have that deeper layer underneath works, and that people do understand what we do and they appreciate it. So as a thank you to all of you who struggle with problems and play our games, and it helps you guys, we are extremely happy that we can do it for you. And we are humbled to actually be in a position that will help you and provide you games that will and can help you out. So, yeah, thank you.
You have a good eye, by the way, for noticing that, because that is, when you deal with trauma, one of the most difficult things to do, right, is just take one more step forward, right? Just like continue more into that darkness until you get out of it, right?
Yeah.
So kudos for seeing that.
I'm a social worker by trade.
There you go.
And so sitting with trauma,
Yeah.
that's another layer.
Oh.
Magic word.
Did you
put her on the payroll?
You're hired.
Hired.
To your game, so thank you.
Hi, I got a two-part question, really. Is this game at all directly tied into the first one, or is it in the same universe, or how does that look as far as the stories go?
Want to answer that?
Yeah, we've already answered it.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm gonna answer that, it seems. So yeah, like it's a completely different story, different protagonist, completely different art setting. Like if you've played Layers of Fear 1, it was a game about this kind of deranged, madness engulfed painter striving to create his magnum opus. This time around, we tackle a story that focuses on film history. From the demo that you've seen, there were scenes almost one-to-one taken from a film recreated in a game. So it's a completely different story, different characters, different, maybe not so different setting, I would say. Like there are differences. However, how we want to think about the connection between Layers of Fear 1 and 2 is kind of the universe that they are set in. So if you were a very keen Layers of Fear player, you might have seen some kind of weird stuff in the game that might or might not reoccur in Layers of Fear 2. So yeah, just I'm not gonna say anything more, but apart from there's a shared universe, but you need to look for that in the game to kind of discover that.
Secrets.
Yeah.
Secrets.
Part B.
And then, my second question was, how long would you say the storyline is? Because I remember going through the first one, and I loved it, but I finished it in like 3 days in like a couple different sessions, and man, I just couldn't put it down, and I'm just wondering how long this one is in comparison.
Yeah, obviously we are still working on the game. However, right now we are looking at around, depending obviously how you play, at around 6 to 9 hours. Obviously you can probably speedrun it faster, but then you miss a lot. Like to give you an example of how long the game is, for us that work at Bluebird Team and play not speedrunning to make a score, it takes us around 5 hours to take the game, knowing every corners, knowing everything what to do. So I would say that a normal person would take around 6 to 9 hours to finish the game.
Yeah, we were seeing an average of like 8, 9
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just depending on there's some puzzles that are a little more difficult and things like that. So.
And again, that's just to play it through the one time. And just like with Layers of Fear 1, there's so much mystery to the narrative, so much mystery to the story, and so many things that you won't be able to piece together on the first playthrough that I think most people are definitely going to dive in to maybe 3 times. And that's not even just to speak of, the endings to the story, but also just trying to get your head around it, understand it, find all the things that are hidden throughout the game, and then probably hop online and actually piece it together with everyone else.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, I played the first Layer of Fear, and when I saw the hallway full of rodents, my spine crawled for a minute. Are there going to be any other callbacks to the first one?
Any callbacks to the first one?
Secrets.
Mythology. The word mythology.
Yeah, like Ish is selling to say you mythology, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like find your mysteries. You won't be disappointed.
Hi. So I've played all of them so far.
Awesome, thank you.
They're awesome. And I think what has always drawn me to them is that the stories that are created are very kind of personal to the character, like their father or a daughter or something like that. And it's kind of like what they're psychologically going through. And you've mentioned with this Layers of Fear 2 game that it's kind of more of an homage to like classical film horror. So is there going to be quite like less personal of a story involved here?
No, definitely not. Like, I think we need to state it quite clearly right now. So the story is our own. Like, we use kind of the film references as a way to kind of expand the experience you will be kind of seeing in the game. You will be, well, experiencing. However, the story is our own. Most of the game is done, well, not reference to any specific film. It will just be a huge part of the game. So the kind of deep storytelling and leaving the story very personal, it's still very much true to the game. So definitely you can expect that from it.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's very, very deep story-wise. And we probably read the script 10, 15 times before we understood it. I'm being honest. So it's that deep. There's that many.
I'm kind of slow though, so
yeah, it were like early drafts.
Yeah, but that's how deep it is. So there's a lot of story.
Great.
One of the nice things too that a lot of folks kind of, you have to keep in mind that this is an actor preparing for a role, just as with the first one we were dealing with, the artist that I keep mentioning, working on his masterpiece. This actor is trying to. The director consistently says, build the character. And so there is a personal story there as well as these nods to other films.
Okay, sweet, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. So I know this is being live streamed to Twitch, so I'm going to apologize in advance for a second. Mixer is huge for its user interactivity. Is there anything in the future for viewers and communities to interact in what the streamer is actually playing?
Not at this, like not at launch. It is a discussion that we've had. We obviously didn't want to do anything that was kind of cheesy, you know what I mean? And so we really wanted to see the full story get fleshed out and us be able to play through as many times as we could to really get a feel for what is this thing going to be when it's finished, and then get it out so that people are playing it, and then start hearing back on what people think about it. And if it's something that makes sense to do, to put in there, we want to have that discussion with the community to do it. But the last thing we wanted to do was just, hey, let's just stick some things in there that felt a little hokey, that took away from the depth of the narrative of this. But it is a discussion that was definitely had several times with Gunn and Bloober. So it's more of a like wait and see post launch.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Hello. So I just had a question about the retail side of it. So I work in a retail store that also happens to sell video games. And back when Friday the 13th came out, I had everybody coming in looking for like a physical CD version of it. Is there going to be like a limited release of like physical copies, or is it going to be like a download digital kind of only thing?
That's an ish question.
Well, right now, we're looking at a digital release for that initial release window, but, the first Layers of Fear obviously had a physical release sometime down the road.
With limited run, is that who you worked
Yeah,
on?
And Observer did as well, so I don't want to rule anything out at this moment. I don't want to confirm anything either, but, no, I wouldn't rule out a physical release, even in just a limited form at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. I was a big fan of the first Layers of Fear game, but I'm going to ask a devil's advocate question. Let's say I have a friend who absolutely hates like walking sim exploration style games, but is a big horror fan, and I think a lot of the horror elements are really strong in Layers of Fear. I just wanted to know what would be your hard pitch to this person.
One thing is a lot of people, they compare Layers of Fear to that walking simulator horror style genre game, but there's a big difference in the way Bloober approaches designing and laying out the interactivity in the game. It's so physical, everything you have to do, like just from the simple act of like holding down as you push open and push closed doors or go through all the drawers and everything in the game. And I think actually that's something that draws people into the horror aspect of it so much stronger than just walking around and experiencing things, because you're forcing someone to do something. And as you say, with horror, you get uncomfortable, right? And so we're forcing them to do something, even though they know it might result in that horror coming forward. And I think that's a really strong element to their games that you don't see in a lot of other just more simple, as you call them, walking exploration style games.
Yeah, I think their environmental aspect they have of changing the environment all the time, that's something that not a lot of games had done at the moment when Layers of Fear came out. So turning around and seeing things change, it keeps you on your toes. So if we're going to say it's a walking simulator, at least there's interesting things happening while you're walking, right? As opposed to just nothing going on. So that'd be my pitch.
Oh, I'm sorry. A large part of the experience is what's happening around you and knowing what to do. There were areas that you can see in the gameplay demo where you end up in a hallway and you have doors to open and they keep shifting. What's locked? What isn't? These kinds of things. Those little nods, those types of things, is on top of the atmosphere that's been mentioned. Gives you a little bit more than you're not just existing simply to witness these things. You're an active participant in what's happening around you.
And there are nods to Dario Argento in the game. If your friend likes horror, man, that's all you need to know.
There you go.
Come on.
Right.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
We're done, yeah.
Yep. Thank you guys very much for stopping in. We appreciate you guys spending the time. I know PAX is amazing. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on. You guys chose to hang out here with us for an hour, and we appreciate it. Yeah. If you guys have any more questions, you can find us around on the show floor. You can also find us at booth 16121. You can play the game and hang out.
Thank you again, guys.